Hey guys, Stephen Cult of Mac here. Now, there's been an awful lot of talk across the interwebs about the new 10.5-inch iPad Pro. But what if you own last year's 9.7-inch Pro? Should you upgrade? Well, in this video, I'm going to compare all the good stuff and try to answer that question. So let's get started. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm running both of these iPads on iOS 10.3.2 to make it fair. I did have my 9.7-inch iPad Pro running on iOS 11, but as it's not available to this fall, I didn't think it'd be right to do comparison tests and so on using beta software. With that said, let's start with the design. Not a lot has changed since the 9.7 was released back in March 2016. The only real giveaways are the larger dimensions and those smaller bezels. Starting with the dimensions, the new 10.5-inch Pro is 10.6mm taller, 5mm wider, has the same thickness coming in at 6.1mm, but it now weighs 32 grams more. So there's not a huge footprint difference between the two. The biggest change is obviously that larger display and those smaller bezels. The combination of which means the screen to body ratio is now 78.3% compared to the 9.7 inches 71.6%. But what about the quality of the screen? Well, the 10.5-inch iPad Pro screen is now HDR capable, 600 nits brighter than before, but it has the same 264 pixels per inch count. And that's not a bad thing. The displays on both iPads are crystal clear, with great accurate colours thanks to that P3 colour gamut, both have the True Tone technology, and both are the best tablet displays on the market. So what else is new with the 2017 iPad display? Well, it now features ProMotion technology, which offers a 120Hz refresh rate. ProMotion will alter the screen's refresh rate depending on what you're doing. So if you're reading a book, it'll refresh less times per second, therefore increasing the battery life, and then when you're gaming or watching videos, it will increase for smoother animations and frame rates. Even scrolling up and down across the home screen or websites is greatly improved. Where this also comes into play is if you're an Apple Pencil user. The latency is now down to 20 milliseconds, which means it's closer than ever to feeling like drawing on real paper with a real pencil. The new screen is also apparently less reflective, although I can't see too much of a difference in person. I'll let you guys be the judge of that one. Although it's only marginally bigger, the new larger iPad Pro does mean watching movies and YouTube videos are that little bit larger. It's not a huge difference, but it's still noticeable. The 10.5-inch iPad Pro now features Apple's hexa-core A10X Fusion chip, which is 30% faster than the 9.7 inches dual-core A9X processor. 4GB of RAM versus 2GB of RAM, and it now starts with 64GB of storage, double that of the entry model 9.7-inch Pro. How does that stack up in benchmark tests though? Well, with Geekbench 4, the 10.5-inch Pro comes in at 3,920 on the single core, versus the 9.7 inches 2,927, and 9,314 on the multi-core test, versus 5,122 on the 9.7 inch. But what does that really mean? Well, if you're editing videos and photos on your iPad, you'll see a significant increase in export times and the amount of time it takes for filters to render in photo editing apps. For example, here I'm exporting the same 4K video on both iPads, where you can see the 10.5 inch is faster than the 1-year-old 9.7 inch Pro. If you're a heavy gamer, you're not going to see much of a difference at the moment, purely because there's not really any games out there just yet that take full advantage of all of that power and performance. Also upgraded on the new 10.5-inch iPad Pro are both the front-facing and rear-facing cameras. While the rear-facing camera has the same 12MP count as the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, it's now got an f-stop of 1.8 to let in more light, as well as the quad LED flash over the dual LED flash, meaning low-light photography will be improved. Here's some quick sample photos I took both with and without the flash, so you can draw your own conclusions. They both shoot 4K video, which again you can see here. The front-facing camera has been upgraded to a 7MP shooter over the 5MP camera in the 9.7-inch Pro. At the end of the day, that comes down to who is actually using that iPad as a camera. The only time I truly use a camera on the iPad is for FaceTime, so having that upgraded front-facing camera is really nice. Whereas I personally very rarely use the rear camera, if well, ever. The 10.5-inch has a slightly larger 30.4Wh battery versus the 27.9Wh battery in the 9.7-inch. But I found that battery life is about the same for both iPads, getting around the 8 or 9 hour mark dependent on what tasks I throw at it. The new iPad also has the 2nd generation fingerprint scanner, but let's be honest, the 1st gen works absolutely fine for me, so this isn't a deciding factor in the slightest. If you're in the market for a new iPad coming from a model that's just a few years old, the speed and display increase will be night and day, meaning it's a worthwhile investment. If you're looking to upgrade from last year's 9.7-inch iPad Pro though, it completely depends on what you're using it for. If it's working fine for what you need right now, chances are it's going to be fine for a good few years to come. The benchmarks show a huge increase on the multi-core, but if you're not a heavy gamer or you're not editing video, stick with the 9.7-inch Pro. On the other hand, if your primary use of the iPad Pro is to illustrate and design, or creating graphic design masterpieces, it may be worth looking at. The improved latency on the 10.5-inch iPad Pro, the more powerful processor, and the slightly larger screen may just be enough to encourage you to make the switch. If you're still not sure, maybe head out to an Apple store and try it out, doing the tasks that you personally do to see if you can see a real difference. As I only occasionally doodle with my iPad Pro, I don't really edit videos or photos on there, it's not something I would truly see a benefit from, so I'm going to be sticking with the 9.7-inch iPad Pro. Well, that's it for this video, but let me know in the comments section down below if you plan to upgrade to the new 10.5-inch iPad Pro, or if you're sticking to last year's 9.7-inch. Also, if you enjoyed this video or at least found it useful, go ahead and hit that like button down below, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more great videos like this. I'll catch you in the next one.